Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's July 11th, 2018, and this is an episode of Ask Me Anything, and it has to do with how I'm going to inoculate different areas of the property, whether it's I'm looking for inoculating the areas around the blueberry bushes, or when I say inoculating the soils around the blueberry bushes, or inoculating the wood chips that are going into the food forest. That's the subject matter that I'm going to try and address for this video. What stimulated me to create this video is I've had a few comments. One, a regular contributor is Tim's Homestead. Tim had wondered, after either I had commented on a video that he had made or a video that I had created, Tim wondered, geez, where are you getting and how much soil are you using from the forest to inoculate around the plants in your food forest for your trees, your apple trees, your blueberry bushes, that sort of thing. So that's one comment that I wanted to address. Another comment was in relation to a video that I'll put up here in the upper right hand corner. Craig, and I'm sorry I forgot your last name, Craig, but Craig had posted a link to a PDF or to a website that was pretty well referenced, and it was a really good bit of information that I think was really worthwhile sharing and all. So thank you, Craig, for sharing that link. And that paper actually had several good references in the base of that paper as well. So, and that covered the relationship of the organisms above the soil, the plants, and its mutually beneficial relationship with those soil microorganisms. And that's something that I've been trying to address, and I'm struggling with trying to convey this message as well as I can with the limited knowledge that I actually have. I basically use I do scholarly searches for the microbiomes of the various trees and plants that I'm looking to inoculate the soil with. And unfortunately, this is a new and emerging area, so there aren't tons of references out there yet which are really easily accessible. So we rely on using a technique that I'm going to describe in a moment as the first step, and then using microscopy, actually looking at the microorganisms and seeing the relative numbers. So you do both a quantitative and a qualitative assessment based on microscopy, looking at the relative abundance, the numbers of the different, microarthropods, the cilia, the protozoa, the fungal elements, and certainly the cocci and rods that are there. And that's beyond the scope of this video. But the other reference, comment, or question that was asked, David M. Put a link into a YouTube video, and I think it was Ashley Now You Know, or something like that, the website that it came from, where a gentleman was taking rice and going through a process of taking rice, putting it in a nylon, like a stocking, and burying it for about a month in various places, one in a bamboo bed and one in the forest, leaving it there for a month so that the microorganisms would colonate the rice. Then I think he put it for another month in a molasses dilution as well, so it would ferment and all. And Dave wanted to know what I thought about that. Unfortunately, there weren't any references to support that, and there's no doubt that he's going to get microorganisms. First, what's the substrate that the organisms are feeding on? Well, they're feeding on, if it's a white rice, it's almost no fiber at all starches, and he really wanted the starch. And maybe that's good for corn. and he did mention corn in the video. So he's getting an inoculation of a starch product, a heavily starched, low fiber, really not much other nutrients in the rice. And I like rice, I do eat rice. And then puts it into probably a beet molasses, a beet extract, or it could have been sugarcane molasses. I'm not sure which one he used, and put it in water and fermented it. So it goes anaerobic during that time during fermenting. And whenever I'm doing composting to create the ideal microorganisms that I want in the gardens, and that I'm using for some of the berry crops as well, I really don't want the large anaerobic constituents, those microorganisms in there. So my thoughts are, first, there wasn't any supportive evidence, or if he had described the microorganisms that he had been seeing, or more about that, I get, and more clearly stated comparison, doing a little bit of a comparison. Well, these plants were not inoculated with the rice molasses process compared to some that weren't, and he talked about different temperatures, and I can't remember where he was from. I think he was south of us, because he was talking about the soil temperature, and our soil temperatures get down much colder than he was describing. So in our climate, and for the goals that I have, I wouldn't be following those recommendations. It may work out just great. I'm sure that the rice get colonized. I'm sure that there's microorganisms in the ferment that he's made. I don't know that they're going to be beneficial for the plant species that he's growing, or for the ones that I would grow as well. So what is my approach? So right now I'm in an area that was a marginal zone, and I created a marginal zone. I created a field area initially, and then a marginal zone. So over to the west over there, you can see the trees. Some of those trees are 70, 80, 90 years old. There's a marginal zone between me and those trees over on that side of the property as well. The tall trees that we see, I won't go into the sun there, but the tall trees we see behind me here, my kids are in their 40s now, and when they were kids, they used to come out here and pick the blueberry plants and all. So I'd come back here and brush hog every couple of years. All of the blueberry plants would start to kick right up and all. So the soil type that was here was pretty darn good for growing blueberry plants. And they're all around me right now. Every place you see behind me, there's lots and lots of blueberry plants. There's even blueberry plants. So I cut this path through here several years ago, and it's growing up again. So the blueberry plants along the edges, now that sun's getting exposed to these blueberry plants along the edges, and even the blueberry plants that are where I came through with equipment and tractors and a dozer and all, those blueberry plants now are 2.5 feet tall, all the little ones that are coming up from being cut right off at ground level. So, but all of these trees are advancing through succession and creating more of a forest. So we've got trees that are 25, 35, some 40 feet, 35 feet tall at this point, right in this area. And so the soil type is changing. The microbial community are changing to support those tree species that are overtaking this area. And so as we go into the marginal zones and go deeper into the forest, we can see evidence of the succession that was there. We can see the old blueberry plants that have very few leaves on them, not really producing berries anymore. Could they come back? Yes. Are they getting the light that they need? No. Is there still some of the microorganisms at the base of those trees? Yes, I bet they are there. This is the area, one of the areas that we pulled some of the blueberry plants, the native blueberry plants that were self-seeded by the birds, and we put them up into the first food forest. Now, easier said than done transplanting these, because this is all gravel area right here. However, the blueberry plants tend to do pretty well. They don't have huge blueberries, but they have blueberries, and they're an excellent source nutritionally. So is this the ideal soil microbiome if I take samples from here? Probably not, but they're pretty darn good. Much better than if I were to buy some soil from a Home Depot or a Lowe's store, or getting the wood chips and all. And I think it's good enough to inoculate the soils around the bases of the plants that we have as well. I'm going to go into the woods now, go into a different area, into a more mature woodland forest in just a minute, and we'll show you what I'm doing in there. Okay, there's planes going over. I'm in the woods right now, and one of the things I did 2 years ago, I came in and took two of the loads, not the dump trailer, but the big truck that comes and delivers wood chips, 2 full loads, and I brought them into the woods in here, and right behind me I put down about 25 yards of wood chips. Now these aren't pretty wood chips that are nice and smooth and easy. It's a large commercial wood chipper that's used, and this was all a good 2 feet deep 2 years ago when I put it in here. And you could see the leaf from not just last fall, but the fall before, had fallen on here twice. So we've had the leaves that come from all of the trees in here. And this is our, a lot of it's our maple forest for sugaring. And so down here, there's not much left of the leaf here. Let's see if this is going to... So there's still some leaf material here. And it's very moist. It's breaking down some. You can see some of the white material in there. And I see some mycelium. I don't know how well this is showing up, but it's been growing, and so I hope you're able to see this. But I've got about 20 yards. I probably only have about I'll only be able to harvest maybe about 10 of the yards that are here right now. But my thoughts were 2 years ago, instead of coming around and digging, remember this is all gravel bed area, but this forest grew up over the years, and the leaf litter has continually deposited in this area. The limbs have been falling off the trees and so on. Trees that have died have fallen here as well. And as a result, each year the microbial community that supports this whole forest area does pretty well. So it may not be a perfect microbial community in these woods here, but it's what I've got. So I decided, instead of me trying to come in with a shovel and grabbing little pockets of material, I decided, when I put in the nursery area that I previously talked about, and I put all those wood chips and all the bagged leaves that I got from the communities, the surrounding towns around here, and I would lay those down, all of those leaves would disappear so quickly, and the volume of the wood chips would start to break down quickly. So the microbial communities in these wooded areas, I could see it rapidly decompose the leaf matter and the wood chips, and with the exception of the lighter branches and the logs that are sitting on the ground, that takes longer to decompose. So I decided, let's take a couple loads of wood chips, put them in here, put them on the forest floor, give them a couple years to mature. Don't inoculate them, let them self-inoculate with what we have here, and then use this material that I deposited here as an inoculum resource for inoculating other places where I'm putting in the food forest or trying to reestablish the food forest. Now I wouldn't be taking bucket loads like with my Optimus Prime, the front end loader, and using this all around a blueberry bush. I wouldn't want to do that. But what I would do is if I've got some fresh wood chips or bags of leaves or cardboard or whatever, I'd go ahead and I'd take maybe a yard of this and do a couple of rows of inoculation. So if I lay down a bunch of cardboard, or if I have a whole bunch of bags of leaves and some wood chips and all, I'd go ahead and lay all those out, or at least put down some of it, then take this front end loader full of these wood chips that are already been inoculated, and take a shovelful, and every few feet drop a shovelful into the wood chips. So that's my plan for how I'm going to try and create more of a get a greater impact without doing as much destruction coming in. I don't think we need that large a volume. So if you don't have the wood chips, or you can't get all of the cardboard or the materials and all that you need to put into the woods, or you don't have the woods in order to the foresty area in order to harvest it from, I think just going to small places and getting, if you took a sandwich baggie full of leaf litter on the ground, little pieces of decaying, that's totally inoculated pieces of wood from the ground, from the branches of the trees and all that have fallen, and use that as your inoculation, your source, that will magnify in your, if you have the food source there, if you have the wood chips, if you have the carbon sources there at the base of the plants where you're going to do it, or where you're going to be putting those plants in the future. So for those of you who have access to forested areas, woodlots and all, another possibility is, gathering gathering up the materials that are falling on the forest floor, all of the limbs that are breaking down and all. And you'll see behind me, there's all sorts of branches and limbs that have been falling down on the forest floor here. You could take all of those and make a pile that would be beneficial for wildlife, create habitat for them during the time that that pile is there. And as that starts to decompose, that material on the very base of it at least would have that microbial community. That's another way that I'm doing slow soil building here as well, and I'll just show you that real quick. So I've talked about this particular system here in the past. This is one of my slow soil building solutions that I've come up with, or my experiments, if you will. What I do is those materials, when I'm not building a hugelkultur system like you've seen recently up front alongside of the fence there, when I have lots of branches and brush and all, I'll take that material, stack it up, and stack it as high as I can, make it at least 10 foot high, maybe 15 foot wide, and whatever length it ends up being. And this one's probably 50 foot long here. Well, it creates a wonderful habitat for wildlife. So the rabbits, the possums, ducks will nest in this, interestingly enough, and certainly a whole abundance of wildlife come in here. And during the time that this has been here, now this has been here I think 3 years now, this pile, and it's breaking down. At the base of it, this is half as tall as it was before, but at the base of it we have tremendous soil being built gradually down there. This doesn't have to get to a completely mature mature soil. I don't have to wait 10-15 years for it. It'd be fine if I did. But this material, as it breaks down in the next couple of years, I can come down here, load it into my dump trailer, and bring it up to the areas that I want. Because as you see, I put it right up against the margin of the woods, and it's going to have more of the fungal community because it's loaded with carbon, and it's mining all, and around it, all around here, the mullein comes up, the asters are here. Many of the pioneering species are on the outside part of this because this is all gravel out here, and it's up against the woods on the other side, so it's a more fungally dominated area there that feeds into the system. And we have all the deposits made by all the wildlife that are living in it as well, the nests that are there. So that material either if I want to wait a while and let it break down completely and turn into nice, beautiful, rich soil, that's fantastic. Or I can, after about 3 years or 4 years, like at this point, this stuff will break up pretty darn easily, the most part of it. There'll be some bony sections in it, but it'll break down pretty darn well, especially the stuff that's completely shaded and holding the moisture under the surface of the pile. And that can be used in food forests as well. It's sort of like an advanced chop and drop. You can put this material down amongst all the food forests, and it's going to have many of the microorganisms already contained within it that can inoculate if you top that off with fresh wood chips or whatever other materials that's especially got a lot of carbon in it. It'll contribute to the materials in your food forest as well, I'm pretty sure. So if this video was of value, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we post another video, and please feel free to leave comments, ask questions, share your experiences, materials that you use to inoculate the food forest, especially those ones you can do it yourself and not be costly. That's what we want to try and do, is create abundance with as little cost and time and energy input as possible. So thanks so much for watching, folks, and have a fantastic day. Bye-bye now.